All right, guys, welcome back to the Pocket Mads channel. It's Maddie here, and today we're going to be ranking all of the best new meta decks in Pokemon Pocket since the release here of Ruler of the Skies B4. So we do this every kind of first Tuesday, I think, after new sets come out. It's Tier List Tuesday. I don't do them every week because in the last couple of months, the meta hasn't changed too much, but that's changing now. The meta is very, very different. Tons of new cards. The meta is almost unrecognizable. And if you're anything like me, you're really curious to know what the actual best decks are given the current landscape of the metagame. The first week here, and it hasn't even been a full week, but it's been absolutely insane, right? To see all of these new decks come into the metagame, to shake things up, compete in online tournaments. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of really interesting things to talk about. So we're going to try to kind of get it all out of the way here in today's video, and I'm just going to be ranking these decks based on not just how well they performed so far this season, but how well I think they're positioned moving forward for the rest of the season. So I try to make this as objective of a tier list as possible. I do refer to placements and success of these decks, but also the overall win rates, average win rates for all of these different decks, but then also their matchup spreads into other top meta decks that are becoming more popular, right? Because so far this season, the metagame has shifted so much. Like even in the first, I don't know, what is it, 5 or 6 days that it's been so far, we have like 3 main progressions that have happened. And trust me, there's going to continue to be a lot more this season. So I'll probably have to do an updated tier list, but for now, these are going to be my opinions currently as I record this on August 4th, which is crazy that it's already August 4th. So we're going to dive right into it, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, but also don't forget to register for PMPT number 41, Savior of the Skies. $100 cash prize pool. It is Saturday, August 8th at noontime. Link to register will be down in the description below. I heavily recommend it. It's going to be a ton of fun, and maybe you can win this tournament or do well and be featured here on the Pocket Mads channel. Super, super exciting. So we are on just like tierlistmaker.com. We do not have a tier list functionality built into pocketmads.com yet, but maybe we will in the future. We're also going to be leveraging limitless.com just because it has the most up-to-date tournament information. So pocketmads.com is absolutely great, but I wanted to kind of get a scope of like the entire season so far, and I didn't want to miss or have anything fall through the cracks. And to be fair, pocketmads.com at the moment is more so focused on like what's going on at the top of the meta. But as you see here, we have, I think, over 20 different decks, more than we have like 25 different decks that we're going to be ranking. And these are all of the most popular decks so far this season. So we will be leveraging limitless.com and the cumulative data throughout this entire season that we have currently of online tournaments. And again, 24 different tournaments, 3,000 players and over 7,760 matches. So there's a lot of data here to go through. But anyway, we're going to dive right into it. This might be a long video as well, so buckle up, enjoy. I should be having timestamps down below, so feel free to kind of jump around in the video if you would like to. In no particular order, if we scroll down, there's even more decks. Oh, man. Yeah, so in no particular order, I guess what we're going to do is just start with right here, which is going to be Beautifly and Dustox, which is a really interesting archetype that got added to the game. I don't think this is really something that I've talked much about here on the channel, but I think that this is a certainly interesting deck list. And what I'm going to do here is find this deck here in the overall ranking. So this is actually the 25th most played deck so far this season, and it has a 45.7% win rate. It's not really something I think at the moment that a ton of people are, incredibly interested in. We do not have any QR codes, by the way, for this video, and I apologize because we're not on pocketmads.com, unfortunately. But tomorrow's video, we'll be back to pocketmads.com and utilizing the QR codes. But yeah, I think that this new Dustox and Beautifly deck is actually a pretty solid single prize archetype. It's interesting that they gave us this kind of right after they gave us the entire Butterfree stuff, right? Which was somewhat decent in last season. So Grass definitely has a lot of these different decks that are all about, pulling a bunch of Pokemon out of your deck list and, being really aggressive when it comes to populating your board and kind of just getting all of your Pokemon out there and evolved, right? And that's kind of what this deck really is all about. Silcoon and Cascoon allow you to kind of populate your bench, just fill it with Silcoons and Cascoons, and then Beautifly, of course, does damage based around how many Evolution Grass Pokemon are on your bench. So the upside to this deck list is that it's a single prize archetype. It is pretty consistent. It's a little bit slow for the current metagame. However, it's very consistent, and you can pull through your deck so quickly, and I think that's a pretty big advantage. Leaf Cape on these 130 HP single prize Pokemon is pretty tanky, especially with Lily, so there is a lot going for this archetype. It was something that a lot of people played like early on in this season. Like once the season first started, people played it, and it, you know, saw a little bit of success, but I don't think it was really something that ever caught on tremendously well. Again, the win rate isn't anything super substantial. This is not something I think that's going to stick around throughout this metagame. Grass is very popular, but as you'll know, we have other top tier grass type decks, which are actually new this season. So I'm just going to go ahead and put Beautifly and Dustox right here into like the C tier. I know this might seem a little bit harsh, but you got to understand these are all of the top decks in the entire game, right? So the fact that this deck is even on today's video and on today's tier list means that it is somewhat, in fact, one of the top decks in the entire game, at least so far this season. So, you know, shout out to Beautifly and Dustox for, you know, coming out and competing and being totally respectable. But we're going to go ahead and just put it in the C tier. I don't know if many people will really disagree with that, but there we go. Now, next up, let's talk about Sleep Altaria, right? So Bad Dreams. This is a deck that, you know, people are playing. Now, you'll notice that this is not only the only Psychic type deck on today's tier list, but it's really the only Psychic type deck that has been remotely popular, other than maybe like some Giratina stuff, but that's kind of outside of like the top 25, which is why it's just not really on today's tier list. And the only Altaria deck that people are playing. So that's one of the more interesting progressions for me, is that Altaria really hasn't ended up being a super significant Pokemon so far this season. Now that might change, of course, but as the lone Psychic type archetype, we're going to try to rank it as well as we possibly can. So let's go back and let's see. I assume it's probably pretty popular. Actually, that's crazy. So Sleep Altaria here is the 13th most played deck so far this season. That's only 2.4% of the meta share, but it does have a pretty phenomenal record at 54, almost 55% win rate, which is really up here amongst the highest this season. Now, I think that is probably something that we're going to definitely see more of as the season goes on. You got to understand that Sleep Altaria is an incredible deck, and Bad Dreams is an incredible package. This is a top tier meta strategy. It's early in the season, so not many people probably playing this because of their, you know, they're busy playing kind of the new stuff. But here's an example, and I don't think this is a deck that's really changed that much, which is probably why not many people are that interested in playing it at the moment. But this is still something that is going to be very, very viable throughout this entire season, and I would not be surprised if this found this way into like a top 5 meta deck position by the end of the season. And trust me, once Ranked comes out in about a week or so, a little more than a week, we're probably going to see this deck very popularly all over the Ranked battle ladder, right? Because if people are trying to win, people are going to play a deck that does win. And again, a 54% win rate, even though it is the 13th most played deck, is very respectable. So yeah, I think Bad Dreams Altaria, an incredible deck still, and will likely be just sort of the definitive Psychic type deck moving forward until we get something really, really strong that overpowers it. I'm going to be putting this A tier, not exactly S tier yet. I do like to be exclusive with S tier decks, but also I don't know if this will really be in that S tier, but maybe it will be. We're going to leave it right at the top of A tier. This is going to be a very high A tier deck this season so far for me. So that's where it's going to go for now. Next up, I want to talk about something really fun, and this is going to be Ancient Dragon Toolbox, which is a really, really fun deck list. Now, if we go over to Limitless, this is categorized by... if we go down here, it's the 22nd most played deck, but Limitless categorizes this as Dragonite EX and Walking Wake. It does have a 58 to 66% win rate, or a 46% win rate, so it doesn't have like a phenomenal winning record, but it has actually done quite well at some large tournaments. Jimbo Pocket, if you guys know Jimbo, he's a great Pokemon content creator. He's kind of, I think, the player that coined this deck list or really kind of popularized it early this season, and it is, in fact, a very, like a legitimate deck, right? I think that the ancient Pokemon, the ancient dragon Pokemon that came out in Paradox Drive are actually completely legitimate. I'm just going to pull this deck list up as an example so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So Walking Wake, Raging Bolt, and Gouging Fire, one of each. And then we have the 2/2 Dratini and Dragonair line. And then we have a Dragonite EX thrown in here because why not? This is a deck that plays 3 different types of energies, right? Which is kind of the whole concept of, you know, the triple dragon ancient Pokemon, is that they all utilize fire, water, and lightning energy. So you might think that that's a little bit inconsistent, but, you know, keep in mind, we still have Professor Sada, we still have the new Rainbow Cave, right? And we have the new Dragonair. So this entire concept of playing the multi-energy dragon type Pokemon has been massively buffed, and honestly, these ancient dragon Pokemon are all quite strong. You're going to see Walking Wake, you're going to see Raging Bolt, but predominantly you're going to see Gouging Fire paired with Mega Rayquaza later in this video is actually one of the most popular decks, if not the most popular deck so far this entire season, which is pretty crazy when you think about how non-competitively viable these ancient dragon type Pokemon were at one point. So this to me is more of like an off-meta version of these sort of dragon type decks. Then we do have several of them. Now, the 3 other Dragon-type decks that we're featuring in this video are all Mega Rayquaza decks. So this is going to be kind of the example that we're giving right now of a new Dragon-type deck that's not playing Mega Rayquaza. It's going to be kind of tough to not play Mega Ray because it's so strong, but this is definitely a very solid deck, one that I really like compositionally, one that I think is super creative, and definitely competitively viable for sure, right? Which is why it's on this tier list. So again, the win rate isn't super phenomenal here, but I do kind of want to respect this deck. It's tough because we just don't have that much data for it. Realistically, I should be putting this probably near Beautifly and Dustox, but I actually like it a bit more, and I think it probably should just be refined a little bit more. And in the hands of some high-level players, I think this deck has a ton of potential, maybe a bit more than Beautifly Dustox. But, none of these Pokemon have a weakness either. So I think as the meta goes on, this will actually prove to be a pretty competitively viable deck list. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the B tier. I actually do like this. I just think the whole dragon stuff is really strong, and I do want to give it its props. So we're going to put this right here into the B tier. I think that's going to be a solid place for it, maybe middle to low B tier. And again, maybe these decks are better than what I'm ranking them. It's just I can only go off the data that we have available. I can't extensively play test every single one of these decks to kind of formulate my own opinion. Even though I have played a lot of these new decks, I just can't play all of them. You know what I mean? I have things I'm doing other than playing Pokemon Pocket all day, unfortunately. But anyway, B tier for that. Next up is going to be Blaziken Greninja. Okay, so let's take a look at Blaze Ninja, right? Which I guess people are still playing. It's the 14th most played deck this season, 142 to 162. That's a 46% win rate. It did do really well at this one tournament. I think we're going to see a very similar season this season for Blaziken that we saw. In the last couple of seasons, right? This is a deck list that to me, has some consistency issues, especially, when you play it, you kind of do feel like the deck maybe isn't as strong as it should be for how inconsistent it is at times. But, when you bring something like this to tournaments, this deck, by the way, not even playing Juliana. They're just not even this list, which is the number one example of the season, is not even playing Juliana, which I find to be hilarious. But yeah, it's kind of a classic high roll deck, Sceptile and Blaziken with Greninja. They're both still seeing play. And I think they're both, decent deck lists. I just really don't feel that strongly about either of them, given kind of the power creep of this new season. And like I said, some inherent inconsistency issues when you're playing a deck almost entirely reliant on rare candy. There is still some status protection in the game as well, so Blaziken just doesn't really feel incredibly strong, but it certainly is sort of a meta tier viable deck list. So I think B tier is also probably a decent placement for Blaziken here. Just gonna throw it right there kind of in the middle. It's in the mix. If Blaziken kind of tops a big tournament, if it gets top 4 or makes it to finals, you're like, oh, that's kind of surprising, but it's not the craziest thing in the world, right? So I really do think B tier is probably a totally fine place for our friend here, Mega Blaziken in Greninja. But now let's talk about something that is definitely more surprising. In fact, let's just cover all of these Greninja Stage 2 decks. The next one is going to be Ampharos in Greninja, which Mega Ampharos is not a Pokemon that's really ever been competitively viable, but if you go to this list, guys, you'll notice it's the 24th most played archetype this season, and it does have about a 46% win rate. So now the reason why I think this deck became somewhat popular was because at the J Dankus Cup number 4, there was in fact a player here by the name of Danimal who actually did quite well with this deck list, and then he went 6-3 at the Brick City Friday tournament. So, this is a deck list that I don't really think I feel extremely confident in. In fact, Mega Ampharos is one of my favorite Pokemon in the entire game, but I do think that as time's gone on, this is a card that came out in B1, it's actually just sort of been power crept a little bit. When I take a look at Mega Ampharos, sure, the attack is strong, but inherently, I just sort of feel like this is just not that strong of a Mega Pokemon. It's kind of crazy to say, yeah. And again, maybe this is a deck that has some potential. It's certainly unique, but it does follow the same characteristics and the same sort of core foundation as the Sceptile, Greninja, and Blaziken Greninja decks, which, as we know, are all decently strong decks, but never really at the top or tier 0, or even at the very, very top of tier 1. And again, this might be a total flash in the pan. This might be a deck nobody's playing a week from now, but it has been played so far this season, and it's been somewhat successful, I would say. So definitely a really cool deck list. I'm going to also put this B tier, but you know what? I'm actually going to put it I'm going to put it below Dragon Box. I actually just don't feel that confident about this deck. I apologize to Danimal. It's a really cool deck. I love Mega Ampharos, but I just can't see it being that good, personally. Then maybe not. Who knows? That's my opinion. All right, and then lastly, we got Mega Sceptile Greninja, which again, guys, this is, what can we even say about these stage 2 Greninja decks? Now, Sceptile Greninja is in a bit of a different spot. Grass type Pokemon have a bit more going for it than the other types currently. Lots of dark type decks so far this season. Sceptile Greninja has always been kind of the most popular version of these Greninja archetypes. The 7th most played deck this season, and it does have a really solid win rate, almost 52%, which is a lot better than Blaziken and a lot better than Ampharos, I would say. But yeah, you'll notice this is, again, a very similar deck list, one that we should all be pretty familiar with at this point, and a deck that I do like. In fact, if I was going to play these stage 2 Pokemon Greninja decks, probably just going to be playing Sceptile. It's going to be really nice into those dark type decks, hitting for weakness. And again, things like Pheromosa and Furfrou kind of fit in quite well. I just think Sceptile is a better card than Blaziken. And again, I think that having access to Pheromosa and just playing Furfrou is a good thing. Grass type is just good. Grass type will be good moving forward until Fire really gets more going for it. I think a lot of people thought Fire would be buffed pretty heavily with Rainbow Cave, and maybe it has been. It's just not something that a lot of people are really playing at the moment. So there you go. That's Sceptile. Again, kind of a legacy deck from the previous season, or 2 seasons rather. And I like it. It's going A tier. In fact, it is just better. It's inherently better than Blaziken or Ampharos, but not as good as Sleep Altaria in my estimation currently. But maybe, just maybe, these dark type decks, and we're going to talk about it, the dark type decks are taking over. Hoopa EX is that guy. And I said it from day one. I kind of geeked out when I saw Hoopa EX, and people were like, is it that good? I was like, this card's crazy. And it's been winning tournaments over the last few days. So that's one of the bigger stories, is these the progression of these dark type archetypes. And I think Sceptile EX is a really good shot to keeping those decks in check. But keep in mind, other grass type decks, one in particular, has been perhaps the most successful deck so far this season. So maybe Mega Sceptile taking kind of a step back, but grass is really good. We'll put it here in the A tier. Okay. Let's get into Mega Rayquaza. We do have like 3 Mega Rayquaza decks, so we're just going to do them all because there's 3 main ways that people are playing Mega Rayquaza. Now, the first one is going to be with Drampa, right? So we're calling this Dramp Ray or Raypa. I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about this because Limitless does categorize Mega Rayquaza a little bit interestingly on its website. Now, the one that you'll see most popularly is going to be Gouging Fire and Dragonair. And that's how Limitless categorizes this deck. It is just a Mega Rayquaza deck with Gouging Fire. We have it on the tier list. If you go all the way down here to the 12th most played deck, or rather the 6th most played deck, this is going to be, as Limitless categorizes it, Dragonair and Mega Rayquaza. But what this is Drampa. This is Drampa Rayquaza with 1 copy of Rayquaza. And there's also here in 12th, the 12th most played deck is going to be Drampa Rayquaza, but with double Mega Rayquaza in the deck list. So it's a little bit awkward how Limitless is categorizing these. But basically for right now, we're talking about Mega Drampa. So look at this deck list here in the 12th most played deck, combine it with the 6th most played deck list here. They're virtually the same, just depending on whether you're playing 2 Mega Rayquaza or 1. But this is the Drampa version, even though it's not listing Drampa. I know that's confusing. Anyway, PocketMads.com is aiming to fix these types of things. But anyway, let's take a look here. This is going to be the number 1 example, in my opinion, of a Drampa Mega Rayquaza deck list. And I think it's good. I think Mega Rayquaza is really solid. If we go back, though, you will see that this particular version is the 6th most played deck this season, but has a 47% win rate, and it really hasn't been like super, taking over the world, right? And I do think a big reason for this is that Drampa, although a really solid card and really nice to pair with Mega Rayquaza, struggles tremendously into Gouging Fire. Drampa rather has 100 HP and hits for 70 damage for only 2 energies. Gouging Fire has 110 HP, takes less damage from attacks, but it does 100 damage for 3 energy. So realistically, when you're playing this Mega Rayquaza version and you match up into Gouging Fire, you're really going to struggle. You're going to struggle because Gouging Fire can just 1-hit KO your Drampa, and your opponent is just able to sort of stick around a little bit more accurately and consistently rather than, your Drampa is. So while I do think this version of Mega Rayquaza is good, I do think there's a really solid case to just play Gouging Fire. They're very, very similar decks. This is going to be the Dragonair Rainbow Cave combo. And also, I honestly think that just playing like 1 Mega Ray is probably worthwhile. I just not really a Pokemon that you want in the active. You'd rather lead with your Drampa. You'd rather lead with your Gouging Fire. The prize math works out better that way if you're able to do so. So again, 1 Mega Ray in these Mega Ray decks I think is totally fine. But again, for me right now, Gouging Fire is probably the better option. I'm still going to be putting this deck, though, in the B tier. I think this is a really solid B tier deck. I'm actually going to put it above the other 3 decks that we currently have in B tier. very good. I mean, it's a very respectable deck, but we have to be kind of conservative ranking this deck because there is inherently a better option, which we're going to talk about right now, which is Gouging Fire. And now Gouging Fire, Rayquaza is the second most played deck this season, and it has just about a 50% win rate, a little bit more if you get rid of the ties, right? Which is pretty understandable for a brand new archetype and an archetype here that doesn't have any weaknesses, but also is one of the most popular decks so far this season. So the second most played deck, about a 50-50 win rate. Or actually, I'm going to pull up this version here that went 11-1 at our recent tournament. So the thing about this deck list is, as you'll notice, it is almost identical to the Drampa version, but we're playing a Sada in here because we can utilize Sada with Gouging Fire, and we can also utilize Ancient Booster Capsule, right? These ancient dragon Pokemon have really good support with Professor Sada and Ancient Booster Capsule. They're really good cards. So the fundamental strategy here is very simple. You just utilize Rainbow Cave, Sada, and Dragonair to get those energies onto Gouging Fire, and you just kind of attack. You just use Gouging Fire until you're all done, and then you use Mega Ray, and hopefully you win the game. Now, decks like this might struggle with bench damage, and I did say this, so no Protective Poncho in this deck list, but it might be something to add in here later. At one point, this player was playing Small Balloon, which I do like, and PCL, of course, I do like as well. There's some things about Mega Rayquaza to me that feel absolutely incredible, but other parts of it to me don't feel like they're going to really be like tier 0 type potential. It's really strong. It's really strong. However, the thing about Dragon is that nothing is weak to Dragon in Pokemon Pocket. So Mega Ray being able to hit for 150 pretty often is good, but it'd be nice if you could hit for weakness on certain things. Same with Gouging Fire. It's a really good deck. This is a deck that's going to stick around throughout the entirety of the season. I don't think it's so strong that it'll end up being like tier 0, but I do think this is a deck that we're going to have to just play a bunch. It's going to be something that is really popular. When Ranked comes out, a lot of people are going to be playing it. It's going to feel quite strong. In the hands of good players, this is a deck that's going to have a really high win rate right at the very top. But it's also a deck that's somewhat punishing for players that, of course, maybe don't have a lot of experience in Pokemon Pocket, right? There are some decisions with this deck list that might not seem that obvious, or may seem obvious but aren't, I guess. I don't know, whatever the term is. For, again, players maybe that lack the experience. So in tournament play, there's been a lot of misplays already because a lot of they're new decks, I misplay all the time, so it's understandable. But to me, I think the win rate for this deck list has actually been dropped a bit by a lot of the players playing this deck that maybe aren't that experienced with it. So we need to be a bit more subjective when we're ranking this. And to me, this is a very strong deck. Mega Rayquaza is phenomenal. One of the best decks in the entire game right now. And I'm going to be putting it here at the top of A tier. I'm going to be putting it probably below Sleep Altaria, at least for now, because I don't know if a lot of people are going to be necessary. You know what? I'll put it above. I wish I could just put them right next to each other, but I guess so far this season, Altaria has been better, but it's a lot less popular. So you know what? I'm going to put it at the top of A tier. It's not that big of a difference, okay? It's just a top A tier deck list. It's incredibly strong. The thing about Sleep is it's a lot more foolproof. Like, it's very easy to just not mess up when you're playing Sleep Altaria. Whereas Mega Rayquaza, it's quite easy to mess up playing this deck properly. So in terms of the strength of the deck, I think they're pretty comparable. Even though Mega Altaria is much less popular but has a higher win rate, they kind of balance out. I do think this deck is really good, though. It's very, very good. It's very strong. We're going to put it here in the A tier. A lot of people doubted Mega Ray, which I found to be interesting when the season came out. But no, it's very good. Very, very good. Lastly is going to be Mega Ray with Dragon Arcana, which is a lot less popular, I think, than the other versions of Mega Ray. If we go down, is it somewhere down here? I don't even know where it is. It should be in here somewhere. It's Altaria. Where is it? Yeah, Dragonair and Altaria. So it's the 21st most played deck this season, so it's not as popular nearly as the other versions, but it's 105 to 85, so it actually has an incredible win rate. And again, another deck that is just really strong. So instead of playing these really strong Dragon basic Pokemon to kind of be your leadoff for Mega Ray, now we're just playing the Stage 1 version, which is Dragon Arcana. And to me, this really is kind of the in-between. It's like you're playing Drampa, but you're also kind of playing Gouging Fire. It takes 2 energies like Drampa does, but it's a Stage 1 Pokemon and not a basic. So again, I kind of put this in the middle ground between Drampa and Gouging Fire, which to me is actually a really good place to be. I think it's actually a card that fits extremely well with Dragonair and Mega Rayquaza. A very straightforward deck, a quite consistent deck, I will say. However, maybe a Sightseer can get thrown in here. We are playing 4 different Stage 1 Pokemon, so that can be a little bit awkward. But we do have Sleep Swablu or Sing Swablu, which is always a pretty decent thing to be playing. Yeah, I really do like this deck list. I think there's a lot of merit here. Again, probably deserves to see more play than Gouging Fire, or see more play than it is currently. maybe it's hard to really say because the you know, the data is a little bit mixed here, and rather we don't have a lot of data for Dragon Arcana, but this is a deck I do feel quite good about. I'm going to put this probably B tier, but I'm going to put it above Drampa. I actually think that this probably holds itself a lot better into Gouging Fire, and it functions very similarly, of course, to Drampa and Gouging Fire. So they're all really good decks. The issue with Drampa is that it just kind of loses to Altaria and Gouging Fire just by the HP amounts and the damage amounts. It just doesn't match up well into them. So Mega Ray's really strong. All these Dragon decks really strong. So there we go. That's where we're gonna put them. But next up, let's kind of get into some throwbacks here. We have Hydreigon. That's right. People are playing Hydreigon. Hydreigon? Well, people always tell me to say this a certain way, and I never do properly. The 5th most played deck this season, so right behind our GOAT here, Suicune Baxcalibur. And it's got about a 50% win rate, actually a bit more than 50% if you don't account for the ties. And I think this is an archetype that has been somewhat updated. I'm actually going to pull up this 10 and 2 list here, and we're going to see if anything's a little bit different. Yeah, so I did talk about this. This was actually the deck that once the season came out, like in that first day or two, it was dominant. It was everywhere. I think one of the biggest reasons why Vespiquen has been one of the most successful decks so far this season is because Dark came out swinging. And honestly, the improvements to Hydreigon are a somewhat big deal. I think they really should be talked about. You got to understand, Hydreigon as the 5th most played deck has a 50% win rate in a metagame that has been dominated by grass-type Pokemon so far this season, which is kind of impressive. You know, things like Vespiquen should have an incredible matchup into Hydreigon, yet it still has a 50% win rate, which to me speaks to just how strong this deck really is. This new enhanced Blade Absol, with the inclusion of Deceptive Needle, these are incredible inclusions to Hydreigon. This makes this deck so scary to me. Being able to hit for 60 damage effectively on your first turn is ridiculous, and then allowing Hydreigon to deal 10 additional damage without needing to be attacked is, again, a massive deal. So everything that was really strong about Hydreigon before is still there. It's a little bit stronger now. They just buffed Hydreigon, and we won't maybe feel the full implications of that so far this season, but it's very likely that we will. And again, guys, over a 50% win rate technically with all of the grass running around. It's a much bigger deal than you might think, right? It's the context clues that you really have to look at to kind of get the full big picture here. And again, Hydreigon really was kind of that first deck that came out and was extremely successful. I feel quite strongly Hydreigon is good. I'm just going to put it A tier. I will put it below some of these other decks in A tier, but still a top tier contending deck in my mind. It is really, really good. And I'm afraid that it just takes a little bit, the needle gets moved, no pun intended, and it could be scary. I also still have PTSD from Tier 0 Hydreigon metagame, which I'm sure we all remember fondly. But next up, let's talk about Hoopa EX and the Hoopa EX archetypes. Again, an incredible card. Hoopa EX is such a strong card. First off, though, let's talk about Hoopa EX and Greninja, which is the archetype that I initially thought we should be playing with Hoopa. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, okay, Dark Greninja gets buffed. It is the 8th most played deck of the season, and again, keep in mind, grass is everywhere. The 8th most played deck this season with a 53.5% win rate. That's 310 to 243 in a grass-dominated metagame. Like, what is going on? Dark Greninja, or rather Hoopa Ninja, whatever we're calling it now, is very strong. This is a list here that we just pulled up as an example is playing a Sceptile, but a lot of decks are playing like a Darkrai, or maybe they're playing Absol. So it is a little bit fluent, and a little bit fluid rather. I said fluent. It's a little bit fluid in how we're playing it. And again, I don't know. It's hard to know like what that last Pokemon you should be playing is. Is it Darkrai? Is it Sceptile? Is it Absol? The concept of this deck is to lead Hoopa and just hit for Shadow Bullet and deal a bunch of ping damage with Deceptive Needle and Water Shuriken. Greninja, tons of bench damage pressure and a lot more active damage pressure than you might assume, from this Hoopa, which again is very hyper aggressive. 1 energy attack cost, 30 damage, 20 to the bench, 150 HP. Absolutely insane. This card's crazy. And then, yeah, I mean, it's just bench damage, pressure, Cyrus win cons, and then, Sceptile on the back end, right? So the ability to put that pressure on really early in the game on a bulky 2-prize Pokemon like Hoopa EX, and then finish off the game with these basic Dark-type Pokemon, whether it's Darkrai or the Megas like Sceptile and Absol, just ends up being a very strong archetype, and one that I think is, really at the forefront of the metagame this season. When I saw Hoopa, I knew it was really good. I don't know if it was maybe something that a lot of people were that hyped about, but when I saw it, I knew what it was instantly. I was like, we're screwed. This thing's crazy. Yeah, I think that's honestly kind of where we're at right now. And again, the 8th most played deck, really successful win rate to me. This is right there, guys. It's right there. I'm actually going to be putting this A tier right at the top. I have this in order: Rayquaza, Gouging Fire, Hoopa, Greninja, and Sleep Altaria. But to be fair, these 3 decks to me feel like they have easy S tier potential, but they're not going S tier yet because we are going to come up on some really strong decks that we have to rank appropriately. And to be honest, guys, there's a lot of strong decks in the meta right now, but some have kind of supplanted. I don't know. Supplanted. They've supplanted themselves at the top of the metagame. It's hard for me to say words today. Maybe sleep deprivation might be the cause. Anyway, moving on from Hoopa Greninja, we have just Dark Hoopa, which to me came out of nowhere, came out of left field just a couple of days ago and started to winning, I think, every tournament. It just hasn't lost, I think, or something since it became a deck list. All the way down here, and again, it is relatively new, so it's the 17th most played deck throughout this entire season, but it is on the up. It is on the rise, and it has a 172 to 104 record. That's a 61, almost, yeah, it's like a 61% win rate. So yeah, okay, listen, this is where we're at right here. Look at these. Look at these first place finishes just in the last couple of days. First, second. Yeah, we're here, okay? This is what's going on. Now, this is just straight Hoopa without Greninja, but we're playing Darkrai. So to me, it does seem like maybe we don't actually even need Greninja because Greninja is taking up a lot of consistency and you know, placements in the deck list, right? It does take 6 cards out of your deck to play the Greninja package. So here's just Dark Hoopa with nothing. We're just playing basic Dark Pokemon. Hoopa EX, Darkrai EX, and a Mega Absol in here. Deceptive Needle still seeing play. Starting Planes to buff the HP of all of our Pokemon. We have Repel in here. We have Double Lucky Ice Pops. We got Field Blower. Toxic. This is not something you want to be hitting right now. And again, guys, in a metagame, I don't even understand how it's possible that Hoopa EX, a purely dark Hoopa deck that is entirely weak to grass, came in at this point in the metagame after grass was winning all of these tournaments and has dominated. Do you understand how strong a dark type deck has to be to come in a time where grass is dominating and become the top deck? I don't even know how that's possible, but it happened. And I'm absolutely I'm going to run through a wall about this Hoopa stuff because this card is crazy. And Hoopa EX might be the new GOAT. It's too early to say that. This card's just really good. I don't know why they needed to give us these dark type buffs with the Deceptive Needle, with Enhanced Blade Absol, with Hoopa EX. I don't know if anyone was really asking for these dark type buffs, but guess what? We got them. Hoopa EX will be at the top of the metagame, just like I said it was going to be. It's incredible. So get your grass decks ready, okay? Because we're gonna need them. We're going to need them. This is really early to say, but again, the dominance just in the last few days. And we like to be, you know, relevant from a timeline perspective. You can't just come in and have a 61% win rate and win the last 3 tournaments and not get thrown into the S tier. I mean, this isn't even a deck we've really talked about yet, and it's going S tier. That's how quickly the metagame is shifting, right? Like literally, it's Tuesday. But like when our tournament started, this really wasn't even something people were playing. Now it's S tier. That's how quickly the meta is moving right now. And I have to put it S tier because like, how does that happen? I just don't even know. That's how strong this deck is. It's absolutely ridiculous. Crazy. Maybe it gets counterplayed in the upcoming days, but for now, yeah, I mean, look out. The Hoopa's coming. It's incredibly strong. We got a couple of Lucario decks next up, and I think Lucario, very respectable, still one of the better Pokemon in the entire game. Lucario, Mega Lucario with the Fighting Lucario deck, the 10th most played deck this season. And it's got a 53% win rate. So Lucario's been quite successful. First place, second place finish, couple of second places here. Definitely one of the better decks in the entire game. I don't think much has really changed here. I have to scroll down a little bit so you guys can see the entire deck list. But at the end of the day, I don't think much is really changing here about Lucario. It's kind of the one of fighting type Lucario deck that we've seen. It's hard for you, I know, guys, to get a screenshot, so I'll just leave it like right here. Yeah, no, I mean, I genuinely think this is still like a top tier deck. Fighting just has the thing going for it. It just does damage, right? I always joke, like everybody looks at effects in Pokemon Pocket and they always like, oh, look at this discarding effect, look at this energy acceleration, look at this item lock, whatever it is. And all of those things are good, but nothing is better in Pokemon Pocket than just dealing damage and taking KOs because that's how you win. That's why things like Greninja are so good, because it just does damage. And Mega Lucario also does damage. He likes to punch. He likes to just hit you, and he'll KO your Pokemon. And I think that's why Mega Lucario will really have a place in the metagame. And when I really look back at the metagame since Mega Lucario was released, I don't know if there's really been another Pokemon that has had that profound of an impact on the metagame. It's just that the nature of the deck list, the breakpoints, the thresholds, the damage output, the ability to one KO certain Pokemon in certain HP ranges. I actually think Mega Lucario is one of the most meta-defining Pokemon that we have in the entire metagame, and I think it probably deserves to see a bit more play. Maybe, if the trend kind of goes back to Sleep Altaria, it could be a little bit sketchy for Lucario, but into a lot of these decks that are playing, 150, 160, 140 HP Pokemon, Mega Lucario ends up feeling like a really strong option, So anyway, Mega Lucario, I feel really good about. I'm actually going to put this, do I put it? I'm going to put it, you know what? I'm going to put it right here next to Sleep Altaria. That to me is like the break point, right? It's really good. I'm actually putting this almost identically with Sleep Altaria. They're just like two opposite sides of the coin that are phenomenally strong. I mean, these are the top of the decks in the metagame right now. Shout out to Mega Lucario. Absolutely incredible. Next up is Lucario Greninja, which I think somebody played. Was it our tournament or was it Jay's tournament? Someone played it. It's the 20th most played deck this season, 102 to 78. So Greninja finding its way into yet another archetype. And, this was something that people played a couple of seasons ago, but kind of fell off a little bit, maybe in favor of just other Lucario decks. But it's back this season, the 20th most played deck, 55% win rate. It was our tournament. Yeah, okay, sorry. I get it mixed up. Third place at PMPT number 40, and I think since then it's become a bit more popular. But this is such a fun deck, and I think maybe why not? Could be kind of a secret sauce here. It's something that probably deserves to see more testing, deserves to be, see a little bit more play. Lucky Egg, why not? Greninja slowing the game down. It's I don't know. This is actually something that I saw, kind of considered to be a flash in the pan, but as I see here, it's been pretty successful throughout the season so far. And once again, not something I've actually really play tested a ton myself. But it's probably quite good. I don't have a lot to say about this other than just the data and the fact that it topped the largest tournament. It got third place at the largest tournament so far this season, and it's got a pretty decent average win rate so far at this point. So, where do we rank this? It's kind of a tough question. Kind of a small sample size here, right? There's really not much. Third place finish, 9th, 7th, 20th, so some decent finishes for this deck list. It's pretty consistent. Definitely been pretty solid. Only 32 people have played it, but again, 102 to 78 is pretty impressive, I will say. Quite impressive. I think this is a deck that probably does deserve to go into the A tier, but what I'm going to do is put it just right here with Sceptile. I'm going to put it, as another really strong Greninja deck list, but maybe not in the same category as just normal Lucario, because we just have more data for normal Lucario. I feel more confident about it. Maybe it ends up being better as time goes on, but to be fair, all of the decks in this A tier are really, really good. A tier is absolutely stacked right now. And Greninja, a lot of Greninja decks in A tier now that I'm kind of looking at it, but I mean, that's the reality, I think, of Pokemon Pocket. But anyway, yeah, let's just put it A tier. I'm not too concerned with where. Next up, Mega Manectric and Helioisk. Okay, guys, here's one of the funny things about this deck this season is that it's the most played deck. This is actually the deck that has seen more play than anything else. Almost 9% of the meta share. Look at this, 787 to 660. With 44 ties, which is crazy, but that's a 53% win rate, being the most played deck this season, right? Which is very impressive, okay? Incredibly impressive. When we take a look at the finishes, it hasn't actually won many tournaments, which is why maybe a lot of people might not rank this super high, but look at the second place, second place, second place, second place, second place, fourth place, first place, eighth place. Lots of really, really, really great finishes for Mega Manectric. This, to me, is a top-tier archetype in the game right now. It's just sort of a matter of luck, whether a deck gets first place at a tournament or not. But when you're the most played deck in the season, and you continue to have a phenomenal win rate and do extremely well into a lot of different decks throughout the season, you just end up being an incredible option. And in my play testing, this deck feels so strong. It feels so strong. It's kind of got everything going for it. It's aggressive, it's fast-paced, It's got a lot of damage output and a lot of really great consistency cards with Clement and Clement's backpack. You got bench damage, you got spread damage, you have Elegant Cape. I really, really like this deck. And there's definitely a world where this deck got first place at a couple more tournaments, and then the metagame kind of flipped over on Mega Manectric. It's just right now it's kind of operating at that deck that isn't heavily counterplayed, but is seeing a ton of play because people do recognize that it's super good and hyper consistent. One of the best decks, really, that we've ever seen, I think, in a deck that really deserves to see more play, even though it is the most played deck this season, which I find to be pretty crazy. Also kind of foolproof, realistically. Maybe a Sights here get thrown. Now, you see, the thing is, you wouldn't play Sights here because we have Clement and Clement's backpack. So I really like this deck, guys. I don't want to stress. I want to stress that this is like a deck that I think we really need to take seriously. And for that, I'm actually, it's going to go S tier. I'm putting Manectric above these A tier decks. Again, like you can't have a 53% win rate and be the most played deck and not get an S tier nod, right? Now it's S tier for almost the opposite reason as Dark Hoopa is, right? Like Dark Hoopa's brand new, hasn't seen a ton of play, doesn't have a ton of data, but has won like 4 tournaments in a row. Whereas Manectric hasn't really won any, but it's gotten second place at like every major tournament this season, which is why, you know, they're both S tier, but for very different reasons. And that's why the data can be interesting, but, you know, two opposite sides of the spectrum, but that to me is the S tier spectrum and they both belong there. Manectric and Helioisk going S tier. Not what I expected. Honestly, I brushed over Helioisk because I completely had forgotten about the Clement package. Turns out incredibly strong. And Mega Manectric, like I said, the most underrated Mega Pokemon we've ever gotten, we've ever had. It's the unsung hero of Pokemon Pocket. And honestly, the new top dog when it comes to lightning type decks. Next up is Sharpedo. We got a lot of Sharpedo decks. So let's talk about Sharpedo because it is seeing a lot of play. It is a really strong Pokemon. Now, unfortunately for Sharpedo, the most played deck in the game is Mega Manectric and has an incredible matchup into really all of these Sharpedo decks. But, you know, that's kind of, you know, you got to take things with a grain of salt when you're talking about Mega Sharpedo. First off, let's talk about Mega Sharpedo and Gyarados, because this to me, I think, is the most played Sharpedo deck. It is, yes. So the 9th most played deck this season. Once again, guys, the 9th most played deck, 3% of the meta, but just above a 50% win rate. And it's going up against the most popular deck in the metagame with almost like an auto-lose matchup, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. So to me, we have to rank these Mega Sharpedo decks in a way that kind of makes sense, because I think Mega Sharpedo is incredible. I think that this is an incredibly strong card. This deck list to me with Mantike, with Wild Swing Gyarados, discarding your Mega Sharpedo from your bench after you already kind of deal some aggressive damage and set up. We got high roll, turn 1 attacks with Wallace. We got Qianpao as our main win condition. Broken deck, okay? An incredible deck list. Unfortunately, or rather fortunately, depending on how you look at it, Mega Manectric is here with Helioisk to kind of settle things down a little bit. Because honestly, I think that without that lightning type deck kind of, you know, keeping things in check, Mega Sharpedo could have easily ran away with the season. And that's what's interesting, right? Is that there's so many strong decks, you just don't really know how things are going to go, right? There's definitely a timeline. There's a multiverse where Sharpedo came out and just started winning everything, right? And people just didn't really counterplay with Lightning, but you know, Lightning's the most played deck, right? Lightning and Grass are in fact the most played archetypes this season. So being dark, being water is a little bit of an an underdog type of situation, right? But still really respectable. And again, we have to rank this based on not just how strong a deck is, but how well positioned it is, you know? And to me, Sharpedo, at least this version of Sharpedo, is kind of the only deck that I can justify still putting here into the A tier, even though lots of heavy counterplay happening for Mega Sharpedo. I'm going to put it below, you know, Lucario. I'm actually going to put it below Hydreigon, just for now, because I don't really know if Manectric will fall off much and Lightning will fall off because Magnezone, Miraidon still seeing play. Again, I do feel strongly Mega Sharpedo is incredible, but it's just a tough world out there for these water type decks, at least this season. So Sharpedo is going to find its way into A tier just off of pure strength alone, but it's bottom 8 tier because it's not really positioned that well. Next up is going to be Mega Sharpedo with his good friend Mega Gyarados, because people are playing Mega Sharpedo lots of different ways. And Mega Gyarados here, this is the 19th most played deck this season. Unfortunately, it's got a 40% win rate. So what you're going to see with these other Mega Sharpedo decks is that they maybe just aren't a little bit as good as Wild Swing Gyarados. And unfortunately for them, they also still have to suffer the same sort of downside win rates into some of those more popular Lightning type decks. So here's going to be the Mega Gyarados deck. And again, there is a timeline where this was good. In fact, this is very similar to the other Gyarados deck. They are still playing double Wild Swing. They just threw in one Mega Gyarados here. It's interesting. You just throw in one Mega Gyarados and the win rate becomes that much lower. It's hard to say. This deck does play Irida and Soothing Shore on top of Wallace and double Lycia, so kind of an interesting build here. I will say, what if we pull up like a different example? Is the deck any different? This one's like a 1/1, so this is probably but it's not playing Mantike. So as you can see, this kind of version of Mega Sharpedo, when you do play Mega Gyarados into it, kind of not really a well solidified archetype and one that really hasn't been that successful. Again, really tough to be playing Mega Sharpedo right now, and if you are, I probably wouldn't recommend playing Mega Gyarados. I'm gonna put this like D tier actually. I guess we are actually going to put this D tier just because its win rate has been pretty bad. I just don't play Mega Gyarados, I guess. I don't know. Why would it be D tier, but this is A tier? I don't know. That's a good question. Just play Wild Swing, to be honest, because I guess all of the top Mega Gyarados decks that we just took a look at on Limitless are just Wild Swing Gyarados decks playing one Mega Gyarados. So if you are going to be playing Mega Gyarados, if you are going to be playing Mega Sharpedo, just play Wild Swing Gyarados. Don't play Mega Gyarados. Like, that's all I'm saying. That's why we're just putting it here. This is just a better version, I guess, which is why this is going to go D tier. I don't know. But we also have Sharpedo with nothing else. Now, this might be confusing to you guys, but if you go on Limitless, Sharpedo is always categorized with something, right? Whether it's Mega Sharpedo and Gyarados, Mega Sharpedo and Mega Gyarados, or as we see here, this is Mega Sharpedo and Qianpao. And the reason why this is called Mega Sharpedo and Qianpao, all of the Sharpedo decks are playing Qianpao. This is just a version that's not playing anything other than Qianpao. So that might seem a little confusing, but that's what this deck list is. Just straight Sharpedo and 2 Qianpao, which I do think is better than just playing a Mega Gyarados deck, because I think Qianpao is really strong and you really should be playing Qianpao with Sharpedo. But again, if you're going to be playing Sharpedo and Qianpao, like, I would recommend you play Wild Swing Gyarados because it's just such a good card and it pairs really well with Mega Sharpedo. So I know that's kind of confusing. On our tier list, this is just going to be, the image is just Sharpedo because, again, all of these Sharpedo decks are playing Qianpao, so I didn't want to put a Sharpedo Qianpao image on the tier list because they're all playing Qianpao. So this is just straight. They're just straight Sharpedo. I don't know. This one is going to go C tier. I'm going to put it above Beautifly. I think it's solid. Again, really tough with all of the lightning stuff with Manectric running around, but it is good. But really, I would just recommend you play this deck list. It's refined. It's well built. It was kind of coined by Njord early this season, and it's been really good ever since. So unfortunately, again, the meta has shaped up to not be that kind to these lightning weak water decks, but still incredibly strong. So that's kind of where I'm ranking Sharpedo. Just it's whenever there's very similar decks that are just like different and there's an objectively better way to play it, the worst ones take a pretty big hit on the rankings, which is why we have these Mega Rays down here in B tier, and then we have one at the top of A tier. It's just like, they're just so similar, you might as well just play the one that's better, right? And I do feel that way about Sharpedo. That's kind of how I do my tier lists, honestly. Anyway, let's get out of Mega Sharpedo stuff. It's really strong. Let's talk about Miraidon Magnezone, okay? Because this is an interesting thing, right? Miraidon Magnezone has dipped all the way to the 11th most played deck this season, and not only that, it has a negative win rate, has a 49% win rate, which is crazy when you consider that the most played deck of the season is a Lightning deck and has a 53% win rate. So Magnezone Miraidon taking a massive drop off. If you were playing Magnezone Miraidon, I would probably recommend that you guys just don't. I would recommend you just play Manectric because I honestly think it's probably just better, which is crazy. It's crazy that that's what happened, but it is. It's just the reality of the season. Sometimes decks get deleted, right? Like when something comes out for a particular type that's a particular style of deck that's just better than something similar, but from the past, it's over. It's time to wrap it up. And for Magnezone Miraidon, maybe it's time to wrap it up. It had a good run there, a couple of seasons, was definitely a top tier archetype, but there's a new guy in town. He walked in and he said, I own the joint now. And that's kind of how I'm feeling. That's kind of what's going on right now. Still a really good deck. I mean, so it's just under 50% win rate. It's going to dip in play because Manectric is rising in play. Maybe it comes back a bit later. This is a deck to me that's pretty just B. It's pretty B tier. I'm gonna put it actually above Blaziken Greninja, but it's not S tier. And we do have a Lightning deck S tier. So that to me is the reality, I guess, of what's happening. Isn't that weird? Isn't it strange how that happens sometimes? It happened. Peace out, Miraidon. Have a good one. Hopefully you hopefully you enjoy your your retirement. I don't know, maybe that's going too far, but anyway. Next up is going to be Vespiquen, which I think is kind of, probably the biggest surprise for people so far this season, right? I mean, I don't know if going into the season people thought Vespiquen would be a top tier deck, but it is, in fact. And I think overall throughout this entire season so far, it's the most successful deck. The third most played deck, just under 7% meta share, but 617 to 494. That's a 54% win rate for Vespiquen. Shuckle, take a look at this. First place, third place, second place, first place, fourth, third, and so on. Incredible. It also won the largest tournament so far this season. So, we got to give credit where credit is due. Vespiquen and grass in general is so strong. That to me is going to be the power creep, or not necessarily the power creep. It's going to be the meta. It's going to be the meta focal point, I think, at the top of the meta this season, is the absurdly strong dark type decks and the really, really good, so much going for them grass type decks. Grass went from being really not good to being probably the best type in all of Pokemon Pocket. Again, Ogerpon, Leaf Cape, Quick Growth Extract, which we're not even playing in this deck, Fragrant Forest, Erica, and all of the strong Pokemon that you have to kind of mix all together. Vespiquen is incredibly strong. Now, Shuckle EX came out of left field. It is interesting. It actually does have great synergy in this deck list. So minus 20 from attacks, 120, that goes to 150 HP. So you come in, you tank a hit, you deal some chip damage, and then you go into Vespiquen, you discard the Shuckle, and all of a sudden you're like, what do I do here? Like, how are we actually going to beat Vespiquen? There are decks that can beat it. It's just not going to be as easy as you might think. And again, Ogerpon, Leaf Cape means that these Pokemon aren't even getting KO'd by a Mega Blaziken. Okay, just keep that in mind, right? And that's kind of why Blaziken and the fire type stuff is tough, because a lot of these fire Pokemon just don't seem to deal that much damage. You're either hitting for like 120 with Blaziken, or you're hitting for 250 with Charizard. We need something in between. We need a really good stage 1 mega, or even a basic mega fire Pokemon that can come in and just really put some pressure and maybe knock these grass type decks down a peg, because it's getting a bit out of hand, if you ask me. It really is getting a little bit out of hand. The grass type decks are so good. Vespiquen. He's that guy. He's came in and he's proved himself immediately. This is the top of S tier. This is the #1 deck so far this season. Whether it remains that way, we'll have to wait and see. Again, we do have Hoopa on here. We have Manectric on here. But when you take a look at the results over the past 5-6 days, these are the top decks. These are the S tier decks in my mind. Hoopa is kind of the new inclusion. Maybe he goes right here. Yeah, that's sort of how I'm feeling. And again, any of these A tier decks could, if the meta shifts, find their way, poke their way right up into the S tier and say, hey, it's my turn now, and maybe knock one of these guys down a peg. But so far this season, this is what we're looking at. Vespiquen, Manectric, Helioisk, and Dark Hoopa are kind of emerging as the top decks this season, which are all new archetypes, by the way. All new archetypes. Crazy. Next up, Suicune and Baxcalibur. Probably the GOAT in all of Pocket history. Not out of retirement yet. This is like year 20 LeBron James is what this feels like, or like year 18 LeBron. Still one of the best in the league. Still one of the best doing it, but maybe a little bit, maybe on the down low here, maybe on the dip. Fourth most played deck in this season so far, which is hilarious. And it's also got a 51% win rate, 302 to 376. So incredibly respectable. I'll be honest here. Did make top 4 at PMPT this past weekend. It's just what you would expect. We talked about this Monday. It's still here, still doing it. Shout out to Suicune. He might never retire. It's just like, he's literally the LeBron James of Pokemon Pocket. Might never retire. Maybe we don't want him to either. Maybe he's just going to stick around. Even with Mega Sharpedo coming in, Suicune Baxcalibur, incredibly respectable. In fact, I am actually going to put this right above Sharpedo. As a matter of fact, I'm actually probably just going to put it above, I'll put it above Hydreigon. How about that? I would say Hydreigon, Suicune Baxcalibur, Sharpedo, and maybe Sceptile and Lucario Greninja. The bottom 5 of A tier are all basically right there. I mean, these are such strong decks. It feels weird to put these decks at the bottom of A tier, but the margins are razor thin. Suicune Baxcalibur still a top tier deck in the metagame, so we're gonna show him some respect there. Next up is gonna be Wailord and Didi. So I wanted to include this because this is actually a deck people are playing. It's not that popular. If we go down, it's the 40th most played deck this season, which seems weird that I would include it. But it's a new archetype that it's actually done pretty well. 30 and 30 is the win rate. And it actually, placed pretty well at some recent tournaments. The reason why I wanted to highlight this is because things like Guzzlord and Didi, things like Steelix and Didi, they just don't see play, and anymore at least this season. So I think Wailord has kind of replaced those archetypes. which is why I wanted to talk about it. And honestly, this is how I would play Wailord as well. Playing double Misty, Soothing Shore, Lucky Ice Pop, Irida, Heavy Helmet, Indeedee. Just keep it alive, just attack, just get it set up. Hopefully, maybe you can attack early with Misty. Not the greatest deck in the game, but Wailord is a kind of a tough Pokemon to play. You know, extremely high retreat cost. So if you lead Wailmer, you're kind of screwed. It's kind of the same thing with like Onix and Steelix and Guzzlord. Like they're Pokemon that when they're in the active, Guzzlord's not, I guess, the best example because of, you know, Ultra Beast stuff, but when these Pokemon get in there, like you can't just kind of get them out. And there are Pokemon or cards that allow you to, I think, scoop up Wailmer, but not Wailord. So yeah, I mean, I think Wailord is a really interesting card. It's actually a really strong card. It's just really not flexible, very rigid in how you would play this Pokemon, and this is kind of the only way we can play it right now. But keep in mind, these Water-type Pokemon have been buffed with Soothing Shore, and this is a deck that does utilize it pretty well. So I just wanted to talk about Wailord. Again, a 50% win rate is nothing to scoff at. We're going to just put this like right here. It's going to just go into like C tier. I think this is just a totally fine deck. It's here. It's a new thing. If people wanted to play Wailord, you can play it. People might be asking me, what about Typhlosion? You know, what about Rotom? What about Swanna EX? Like those are all probably totally fine cards. The issue is that, you know, there's only so many new cards that people will kind of gravitate towards and play and sort of accept as like new meta strategies. And, you know, this season in this new set, a lot of those cards came out. Typhlosion, Rotom, Swanna, these are cards people just aren't really accepting as popular meta strategies. People just aren't playing them. So that's why we don't really have the data. They haven't done anything, so they're not on the tier list. And I know people, and Gallade is another example of that. I thought Gallade had a lot of potential, personally, but there's just not, you already have Lucario. So, like, why are we playing Gallade? And that's just the reality of it. So I think all of those cards have a ton of potential. Maybe they come in later this season. Maybe we actually talk about them in tomorrow's video. But in terms of, like, meta contending decks, they're just not really there, okay? I probably should have said that earlier in the video, but that's what's going on. Let's talk about Charizard. The ordering of this tier list was so random, but let's talk about Charizard because it is a deck people are playing. It is the 15th most played deck this season, and just like Charizard decks in every season ever, it has just below a 50% win rate. There's no escaping it. If you are a Charizard deck, you will see play, and you're just going to be a little bit below 50%. Just no matter what happens. That's just the reality of it. I actually think Mega Charizard has some potential. This is a deck that, again, is quite unique. I think Charizard took a bit of a hit after Lucario became popular because the break point of 250 just isn't that relevant. Like, I'd rather hit for like 190 and play Lucario than build an entire deck around hitting for 250 with Charizard, which does damage to itself and attacks for 4 energies, right? So high risk, very high reward. But again, like most decks of the metagame right now, like you can deal damage and not lose after getting hit with Charizard, right? So, you know, any of those kind of 2 prize or 1 prize decks just beat Charizard because of the nature of it. But Charizard does do really well into certain archetypes, so we got to give it some respect. It is a totally fine deck list. Rainbow Cave has been a bit of a buff here to Charizard, and I do think that's pretty cool. So again, it's a deck worth playing. Blaziken seemingly is just a little bit undertuned at the moment, a little bit power crept. Charizard is not power crept. It just like doesn't still fulfill the niche that you would think it would, just because they just like, I don't know, like mega decks aren't even that popular, you know, realistically. Like the top decks of the metagame right now are 2 prize archetypes kind of, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, there's Charizard. That's the top version of it this season. If you wanted an updated Charizard deck, we'll do an updated deck list at some point this season. Charizard is going to go B tier. I'm actually going to put it right above Blaziken. I think it's just better than I would just rather play Charizard than Blaziken, honestly. I've never been a big Blaziken fan. I think it's kind of been fraudulent forever. But anyway, Charizard, kind of real middle of the pack type deal. Totally fine. You know, it is what it is. Now let's talk about Zoroark, something that, you know, a lot of people haven't really been playing. It's weird because this is a Pokemon that I think is still quite good, but maybe Hoopa kind of knocked it off its pedestal a little bit. The 16th most played deck somehow, only 16th place in terms of most played decks. And it's got a really solid 53% win rate, 148 to 120. I really like Zoroark. I think it's definitely still good. In fact, this is an updated Zoroark deck that is playing Hoopa still. Just plays 1 Hoopa because, well, literally, why not? I think Zoroark's really good. There's definitely a world where, you know, by the end of the season, it's still one of the more popular decks. It's just a good card. Now, it feels strange because we just have so many Dark-type Pokemon and so many different Dark-type combos and strategies. And, like, it's like, when you're playing a Dark deck, it's like, do I play Hoopa? Do I play Zoroark? Do I play Sableye? Do I play Absol? Do I play Hydreigon? Do I play Darkrai? What am I playing? What do I do? Do I just slap them all together? Probably, and you're probably going to be pretty good. So it's becoming quite interesting for the Dark archetype as things move on. But as you guys have seen, we did put Dark Hoopa in the S tier because this particular build has been incredibly dominant. So what's to say that Zoroark won't be dominant too? I mean, nothing really. And it's been really respectable this season. Zoroark is going to go into the A tier. In fact, I'm actually going to put it. I'm going to put it like right here. I'm going to put it a little higher than Hydreigon because I would rather play Zoroark than Hydreigon right now. But honestly, I think it's probably in that middle A tier placement. So that's what we're doing there with Zoroark. That's the tier list, guys. This is an hour-long video, so you know it's about time that we wrap this up here. Comment down below. Please let me know. Very top-heavy as our tier lists have been. But again, when you're ranking the top 25 decks in the game, you know, it's going to be somewhat top-heavy. But yeah, I think that Vespiquen, Manectric, and you know, Dark Hoopa, at least at the moment, these are the decks that are really solidifying themselves as kind of a better than the rest, at least so far this season. But look how many decks are in that A tier. Those are all like on deck. Those are all the decks that just could come in and, you know, without any stress at all, win a large tournament. Like if any of those decks in A tier win a tournament, nobody should be surprised by it, okay? It's just the decks in S tier have been winning tournaments, right? So like that's why they're S tier. But yeah, no, A tier is incredibly good. The ordering, don't worry too much about the ordering. Like it's more so kind of about popularity and how much data we have and my full confidence. You know, like Mega Ray and Gouging Fire is really not that much better than Sharpedo. I just think it's more well positioned and it's kind of done a bit more. So that's why it's at the top of the tier list. But, you know, A tier, all of those decks in A tier are incredible. B tier's decks that are either just like totally solid or there's just other decks that are similar, but just better objectively. So like that's why they're down a peg, right? We're looking at the other Rayquaza decks that aren't Gouging Fire. We're looking at Miraidon, Magnezone, the Fire type decks again in general, just a bit mid this season. You know, the Ancient Toolbox deck I really love, but you know, it's just another sort of Dragonair Rainbow Cave deck. And right now I think Mega Ray Gouging Fire is just sort of the premier example of that. And then again, same with like, you know, Ampharos and Greninja. It's like just probably play Lucario or Sceptile. Like they're just kind of better. C tier, these are like really fine decks that are just like not like I don't know if there's really a big use case to be playing these, but they are somewhat respectable. Wailord and DD, you know, Sharpedo without Gyarados, and then Beautifly and Dustox. And then in D tier is just a deck I just don't think anyone should be playing, which is going to be the third worst Sharpedo deck, which is with Mega Gyarados. Just don't play Mega Gyarados. It's just I'm just here to tell you, people are playing it. Don't play it. Just don't play Mega Gyarados. If you want to play Sharpedo, play that deck that's up there into the A tier. And that's the tier list, guys. These are the most played decks this season. Again, if I did not highlight a deck or rank a deck in today's video, it's because people haven't been playing them, so we don't have the data. But next week, or maybe the week after, we'll do an updated tier list, and trust me, things will likely be very, very different. But comment down below, let me know what you guys think. I apologize for such a long video, but super exciting. This season has been so much fun, and I have so much to talk about, and I feel pretty good about these rankings. I honestly do. So comment down below. Let me know what you agree with. Let me know what you don't agree with. And again, before you get out of here, definitely register for PMPT number 41 this Saturday, August 8th at noontime. Link to register down in the description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Go check out PocketMads.com. Peace out. Have a good one. We'll see you guys next time. And yeah. Bye.